I'm currently living in a storage unit.
I live in a storage unit because it's cheap in comparison to an apartment.
People actually living in storage units because they can't afford or cannot get approved for an apartment.
Imagine being so desperate for shelter that your only option is a storage unit and then you get handcuffed for it.
This tenant has been evicted from their storage unit because they were trying to live inside their storage unit, which is why all their stuff is here and they're packing it up right now.
So if you're gonna live in a storage unit, you're gonna need to be as invisible as you possibly can be.
I ain't gonna lie. Get in a storage unit and only giving a motherfucker $125 a month and you live there?
They want to living in a storage unit.
But here I am, living in the storage unit. And the bad part is your access gets denied after 10 p.m. So if I am to leave right now, I wouldn't be able to get back in.
Show me you moving things around. Yo, can't be sleeping in here, bro. It's a storage facility.
Nobody can use a storage unit as a residence, so it's basically against the law.
Storage units were never meant for people. They were built to hold objects, extra furniture, boxes from old apartments, things people didn't need right now but weren't ready to throw away. Yet, across the country, something unsettling is happening. People are living in them, not as a choice, not as a lifestyle, but because rent has become impossible. This doesn't look like homelessness the way people expect. There are no tents, no sidewalks, no obvious signs. Instead, there are roll-up doors, padlocks, concrete hallways, and behind some of them, there are people trying to survive quietly. They wake up early, they leave before anyone notices, they go to work, they shower at gyms, they eat cheaply. From the outside, everything looks normal. That's why this story is easy to miss. These are not people who gave up. These are people who ran out of options. Rent went up, wages didn't, housing disappeared. And when the math stopped working, they did what humans have always done. They adapted. Living in a storage unit isn't about comfort. It's about containment. 4 walls that cost less than an apartment. A door that locks. A temporary answer to a permanent problem. This isn't a fringe issue. It's a warning. Because when people are forced to live in spaces meant for things, it means housing has stopped doing what it's supposed to do. And that reality is closer to more people than they want to believe.
Yo, you good in there? Yeah, I'm just moving things around. Show me you moving things around. Yo, can't be sleeping in here, bro. It's a storage facility.
Bro, you're disturbing my workplace.
Nah, bro, you can't sleep here, bro.
I'm currently living in a storage unit. My landlords decided not to renew my lease this year, and the apartment that I applied for won't be open until October 1st. I have family here in town. But here I am, living in the storage unit. And the bad part is your access gets denied after 10 p.m., so if I am to leave right now, I wouldn't be able to get back in. Here's my setup. I got my bed right here. Don't come at me. I'm literally living in a storage unit, bro. And how I lock myself in here to ensure that no one comes in here is I use this rope and I put it under my TV stand. And that makes it to where this door can't open from the outside. I've also dummy locked it to where it looks like someone isn't in here and they've got their shit locked up. So when the employees walk by, they don't know I'm in here. Slowly getting back to my feet, you know? Come join the journey. Follow.
All right, you guys have been asking for a room tour at my my storage place living situation. So here we go. Big reveal. There's the bed. Super comfy, straight on the ground with a pillow and the recording setup. And this is where the magic goes down. It's like, I don't even know, 8 by 8. I love it.
I ain't gonna lie. Get in a storage unit and only giving a motherfucker $125 a month and you live there? Open it up.
I live in a storage unit because it's cheap in comparison to an apartment. Living here is actually really comfortable. I get a lot of things that I need and want to get done here. I can exercise. I can use the bathroom. I can play music anywhere in the unit. It's climate controlled in here, so it's nice and warm. This unit is 24 hours, so I can come here anytime I want, stay here as long as I need to. We can take naps if we need to and go to sleep. So this is our living space. Very, very grateful to have this space. The next goal is to get an RV. The next goal after that, tiny home. And if we want to eat, I just cook right out front. Or we'll just prepare something cold inside of the unit. Sandwiches, a lot of times we make salad. If we want to get power, we use our power bank. They also have power here so we can charge our power bank. Me and my baby will live here as long as we need to until we get the shelter that we want. Because we're living here, now we can save up more money to get what we really want. We're in it for the long haul. Thank you for the support. Thanks for watching.
I hope that man that got in here talking about he's living in a storage facility because it's cheaper is telling a lie. Now, granted, he might be onto something because rent is... But in the social media world full of toxic investigators, he's bound to be found out and put out. And I have questions about the facility because how are they never seeing this man and his girl on camera? Like he's sprinting up and down the hallway doing handstands, going on dates in the storage unit. Something's not adding up. But if something is adding up, I need to know what facility he's staying at because the way rent is increasing around here. I'm just kidding, but do you guys think he got on here and made up a story for social media? Or do you think he's actually living in that facility and he just hasn't been found out yet?
Real Lawyer reacts.
I live in a storage unit because it's cheap in comparison to an apartment.
Is living in a storage unit legal in the state of Texas? Unfortunately, no. The state of Texas says in its property code, nobody can use a storage unit as a residence. So it's basically against the law. But even if the state of Texas didn't say you can't do it, most rental facilities have a clause in their rental agreements that says you understand that you cannot use it as a habitation. So by law, and by rental agreement, you're precluded from using it. What happens if you break your rental agreement? Well, they can charge you with trespassing. And if you get charged with trespassing, you can face jail time and a fine.
Most people living in storage units didn't fall overnight. They were priced out. Rent increases came faster than income. Renewals became ultimatums. Affordable options disappeared one by one. Some tried roommates, some tried downsizing, some tried moving farther away. Eventually, there was nowhere left to go. Storage units offered something simple: 4 walls, a door, and a monthly cost that was still cheaper than rent. It wasn't comfort, it wasn't safety, it was shelter. And that distinction matters. Many of these people still work full-time, they still show up, they still function, they just can't afford housing anymore.
What y'all think? You go to air mattress. I got it. I'm about to set it, see how it turned out. What y'all think? I don't know if the TV gonna be able to. Hey, look. See? So it's the epic fail with the mattress, y'all. So with the air mattress, so I'm gonna have to. I'm sweating in here, it's hot. But yeah, I'm gonna have to get me I'm gonna have to order me like a little mat or something to sleep on the floor. Day one of living in a storage unit. I was able to get electricity so I could start cooking. Tonight I'm gonna finally be able to stretch out while I'm sleeping. It's actually better than sleeping in the car. I'm just trying to be grateful because I know there's somebody that would trade positions with me.
So if y'all been paying attention, y'all know I live in storage. I lost my job. Yeah, you see, I had a whole bunch of money. I don't got no money. I'm staying in the storage now, on my ass, on my dick. But I said I was gonna make the best of it. So yeah, you know, storages be having these reuse centers. So I found this bike one day at the reuse center, and I was like, I'm gonna put this on Facebook Market, and I put it on Facebook Market for $55, y'all. And it took me a little bit to sell it, probably like a week or so. You know what I'm saying? But somebody finally called and said they wanted it. Text me on Facebook, said they wanted it. And I was like, all right, bet. Boom. They pulled up, you know. I went up to my storage and brought it back down. And I let them test ride it for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Y'all gonna see me taking it to them so they can test ride it. Hold on. There you go. He hopped on that mug, did a little spin, you know, and then he sent me my money. I told y'all I was going to make the best of staying in a storage. We making money already.
People actually living in storage units because they can't afford or cannot get approved for an apartment or a townhome or even a studio or an efficiency. And so they have been forced to find an alternate solution, which in these cases was actually living at, not just living out of, but living at their storage unit.
This is my storage unit bedroom. It's a mess because I'm trying to get moved, evicted, but I lived here for 8 months. See my insulation pieces? It's a noodle. This is my bed.
There is, in another set of videos also, he's talking about cooking outside, which is good that he went outside. Some of these people don't. They have these tabletop burners. That's a huge fire hazard. How do you have enough power to refrigerate your salads and your cold foods? That's another question that I have.
Here's what it looks like in the storage unit. You can see a bed right there, all set up with bedding, and a sketchy looking loft that's built up with all the items on.
Same thing that the other person did, built up a loft, put all their stuff to store it. They had a bed. Similar story.
Top, you can see a TV that's set up right there underneath this loft structure. There's candles on this table, which is a potential fire hazard. Coats are hung up over the door and multiple items on display. For those of you that are wondering why we don't allow people to live in a storage unit, even if it seems like maybe they're not causing a bunch of problems, it is illegal for us to allow people to live in storage units. They're not habitable. We're not providing the necessary things that they need for occupancy by law, so we have to terminate. It's for legal and also safety and security reasons. The way we figured out that this tenant was living on site is there's a few different things that we watch. When we check keypads, we see who is staying after access hours, and this tenant had done this multiple times. We also noticed that this tenant was leaving items outside of the unit and in the exterior hallway that were there.
And how I lock myself in here to ensure that no one comes in here is I use this rope and I put it under my TV stand, and that makes it to where this door can't open from the outside. I've also dummy locked it to where it looks like someone isn't in here and they've got their shit locked up. So when the employees walk by, they don't know I'm in here.
To see this is shocking to me. I'm not surprised, but shocked that people have been reduced to living this way. We know that there's people that live in their cars. We know that there's people that are homeless. We know there's people living in shelters. And apparently there's people that have taken it to this step of living in a storage unit.
Living in a storage unit. I used to work at a storage facility, being that student loans are going to have to probably be repaid soon, and 50-50 if you get that waiver of $10,000 to $20,000, your living situation may change drastically. That is why I am doing this. Step 1, be a ghost. Don't be seen by employees or tenants, or be seen as little as possible. Go in before or after the employee gets there, outside of normal business hours so they don't see you. If you are there during normal business hours, don't be seen. Make it look like you're not there. If you're in hot or cold climate, you're going to want to be temperature controlled. Temperature controlled units typically stay between 55 and 80 degrees. Meaning that you can stay there throughout the winter and summer and not die, which is very, very good. Don't get an outside unit if you're in a crappy climate. Step 3, electricity. Find a unit that has electricity. Some do, some don't. Get a lead cord, essentially. But the thing is, you can't be seen with the lead cord. If someone sees a lead cord sticking out of your unit, you're going to get kicked out pretty quick, whether it's by a tenant or whether it's by the employee actually seeing that plugged into something. Not a good idea. Solar-powered generators or solar-powered anything for your phone, hot plate, water, whatever. Bathroom situation, you're going to have to go to a public bathroom. There's no getting around that. If you're lucky and there's land, you may actually be able to bury it, which isn't a terrible idea. Get a shovel. Don't keep it in your unit. If there's a dirty, disgusting smell, you'll get reported. You'll get kicked out. You don't want that to happen. What else? Oh, lock-wise. Make it look like your unit is always locked, even if it's not. So at night, if you're sleeping in it and it's closed, keep it in the open position, but put the lock on it to make it look like it's locked. Maybe put something on it to make it so nobody can actually open that door at night, because I have had that happen before, where a tenant was sleeping in a unit, somebody came in, they thought it was unlocked, they went to open it, and they saw them sleeping in it, had to kick them out, unfortunately, nothing you can do about it. Time-wise, when you go in for the night to go to sleep, and after about an hour of you going in for the night, put in the code to exit, so it looks like you left, but don't actually leave. And then in the morning, if you don't have a car and you're walking in and out of it, just sneak out behind a car. Wait till you see a car come, sneak out behind it. That way you're not putting in the code again, and it doesn't trigger the employee to look into that. Some do, some don't. Depends how vigilant that particular employee is. Overall, try not to be seen as much as you can. Temperature control is your best bet. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I know this is one of my longer videos, but financial situations change, things happen. Good information to have.
Imagine being so desperate for shelter that your only option is a storage unit, and then you get handcuffed for it. So I know these two girls that had recently become unhoused. They had decided to stay in their storage unit, and they were not on substances. They did not have schizophrenia or serious mental illness. A lot of people think that all homeless people do, but they just came on hard times. So one of the girls had a storage unit, so they decided to stay the night in the storage unit. And some prick that had a unit across from them ended up calling the police. They got arrested for criminal trespassing. The girl whose unit it was got an immediate eviction. They threw out everything, all of her stuff, everything she owned was in that storage unit. They threw everything out, did not give her deposit back that she paid for that storage unit. They were not bothering anybody. They just wanted to stay the night in there because they were afraid to sleep out on the street. It was awful. They say that there's like 775,000 unhoused people, but I would guarantee you that it's almost double that, because that number does not include like families that live with other families, or people that live in sheds in other people's backyard, or just crash on other people's couches. And so we'll say 1 million, even though we know it's higher than that. But that is 1 in every 340 people that is homeless in the United States. That is crazy. I live in Florida, where a 700 square foot apartment is $2,000 a month. So, I got all these comments on my other video about people saying they're mentally ill and they can't take care of themselves. That's just not the case. Everything is so expensive that even people that work 2 or 3 jobs cannot afford housing at this point. 25% of Floridians are eating off of credit. The saddest part is the government knows how to fix this. Housing First has proven to work, but they would rather just lock these people up and make money off of them in the Department of Corrections. It's disgusting.
So I live inside of a storage unit. They give you a house tour. Home's not where the heart is. Home is where your shit is. So this is my front door. Very secure. These are all of my things. This is a log of everything I own. 3 e-bikes. 1 got stolen at Burn. 4 trash bags of costumes. 1 vintage popcorn machine. A case full of snow stuff. My skydiving gear and base rig. 2 snowboards and 1 set of skis. Now the problem was I wasn't the last person in here, and so now I have to reorganize everything. So I come here between every single trip that I do. I just got back from Chile, which means I have to drop off my snowboards, I pick up all my wetsuits, and my skydive gear, because I'm going to Africa and then Italy. Even though with my new job I can afford a place to live, this is just a hell of a lot more convenient if I'm not going to sleep here. The hardest part of this actually is figuring out what clothes to pack for each trip, which I guess is the hardest part of every trip. Somehow it's way harder when you're trying to go for like a month or more. This is the face of someone who just did the math, and I'm leaving for 2 months. That's a really long time. 2 biggest packing packs, 1 packing cube, and 2 overpack. Always overpack. pack. For Africa, I've got my fins.
And all my other dive gear.
And for Italy, I've got my base jumping gear. My just-in-case suitcase. Everything else that I could ever own. Except for the stuff that lives in here. But I was the last person in here. It's all nice and organized. And that's pretty much it for my bi-monthly trip home. That's pretty much what it's like living in a storage unit and repacking every time.
This tenant has been evicted from their storage unit because they were trying to live inside their storage unit, which is why all their stuff is here and they're packing it up right now. The way we figured out that this tenant was living on site is there's a few different things that we watch. When we check keypads, we see who is staying after access hours, and this tenant had done this multiple times. We also noticed that this tenant was leaving items outside of the unit and in the exterior hallway that were there. Soon after these things happened, we saw on the keypads and also the cameras that the tenant had stayed overnight, entered the facility at 8:08 p.m., and exited the facility the next day at 2:08 p.m. I sent out a warning to the tenant and I said, hey, we don't allow living on the property at all. That's against your lease. I quoted the lease in there. This is a one-time warning. We're not going to kick you out this time, but we will terminate your lease if this happens again. Unfortunately, the tenant had done a similar thing again, staying on the property a majority of the day and way after access hours, and was letting one of her friends doing things on the property that they shouldn't. So I reached out to the tenant again and I said, all right, everything's terminated. You need to come and pick up your belongings. I'm going to have to meet you there on site. We're denying your access and we'll give you a 2-hour window to pick up your items. About a week later, last night, the fees were paid. This morning, the tenant called me, said that they rented a U-Haul and could meet me on site to retrieve all their belongings. Here's what it looks like in the storage unit. You can see a bed right there, all set up with bedding, and a sketchy looking loft that's built up with all the items on top. You can see a TV that's set up right there underneath this loft structure. There's candles on this table, which is a potential fire hazard. Coats are hung up over the door and multiple items on display. For those of you that are wondering why we don't allow people to live in a storage unit, even if it seems like maybe they're not causing a bunch of problems, it is illegal for us to allow people to live in storage units. They're not habitable. We're not providing the necessary things that they need for occupancy by law, so we have to terminate. It's for legal and also safety and security reasons. This tenant in particular was also allowing other activities that are definitely not allowed on this property to be happening. You can see there's some more progress made. They're going in and out of their unit, constantly loading things in the U-Haul. At this point, I've been on property with them for about 2.5 hours. I just walked over there and took a look inside. Basically, there's like the shelving, the loft thing that's left there. Most of the stuff's loaded up inside the U-Haul. It's been about 4 hours now, still waiting for her to finish up, and she's waiting on one of her friends to come bring a drill so they can take down the shelving, and then we'll be done. After about 30 minutes of waiting, another tenant that she had talked to that's moving out today volunteered and said that she would take down all this wood with her drill. I think that's where she was going to get the drill down. She asked if that was okay, and I said, yep, that's fine. So that way she can take off, and so I can leave as well. So after about 4.5 hours, this is what's left. And now I can leave the property.
What makes this situation especially unsettling is how invisible it is. Storage units are designed to hide what's inside. No windows, no signs of life. People sleep among boxes. They organize belongings to make space to lie down. They leave early and return late to avoid attention. They aren't homeless in the way people expect. They aren't housed either. They exist in between. And because it's happening quietly, it's easy to ignore. But this isn't about individual choices. It's about a housing system that stopped serving people. When working adults can't afford basic shelter, the problem isn't personal failure. It's structural collapse.
And that in, let's say about 4 or 5 years. Every place I move to, they take out the trash for me. So I'm having to do everything on my own. However, it does let me know that I am stronger than what I thought. And as hard as it is to believe, living in this storage unit has actually given me a boost of confidence. I feel so much more determined. I feel so much more at peace. I do my daily devotionals every single night. I'm on night 9 as of now. And I know y'all have some questions for me, so let me get them out the way. No, I am not at the storage unit all day. I am not. I'm only there from 9 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. the next morning. So I'm not there all day. Somebody asked how I use the restroom. Well, as you guys can see in the previous clip, I do actually have a toilet. But I'm so grateful for this experience. Look at my car. It ended up having an issue and I just got it fixed the next morning. This is the type of life I'm trying to live. Enjoy my journey.
That's the finished product, y'all.
So if you're going to live in a storage unit, you're going to need to be as invisible as you possibly can be. You basically need to be a ghost. If anybody finds out you're here, that's when you start running into trouble. So first of all, I needed power for my unit. So what I did is I ran an extension cord along the power cable up here, and I sort of zip tied it up. So you can't really tell its power is going to my unit unless you are looking closely. So this is my unit here, and at the top of the unit you can see I have an antenna, and that's so I can get a cell signal inside the unit itself, because once you close the door it drops all signal. I have a lock which I've magnetized onto the door so it looks like it's locked even when it's not. And then when I actually do want to lock it, I can just use this lock or use another one down here and leave that one there. Alright, so let's take a look at the unit now. So in here I've got my TV, entertainment center set up there. I've got my bed. I've got my kitchen area over there, complete with a fridge, and my couch over here. Once you're inside here, you can close the door, and I've screwed on a latch here so that way you can close it and sort of lock it from the inside. I've also put a mirror up so you can see what you're doing. Up here I've got a toaster oven, and this toaster oven actually works pretty well. I'd say it works just as well as a conventional oven. I've got some dishes over here. I've got some more pots and pans over here, and my fridge is right here. Underneath I've got a filing cabinet, some tools, and some storage for some other stuff I have. Up on this part of the kitchen I have cutting board so I can make some lunch or dinner there. I have a hot plate for boiling water, cereal. Up here is the Tupperware, and then over here I've got a food cupboard with all my food. And this is the sink I've built, and the sink is basically like a 25-liter container filled with water, and I've attached these tubes here, so you just open it up, and then the water comes down this tube and out there. So you've got running water, you can do dishes, get a drink, whatever, and then the water filters into this bucket, which goes down into these holes here, which goes into a funnel, which leads into a separate container here. And I usually find I have to empty that container and refill that one, usually once a week, maybe twice. So over here above the bed, I've built a bar, and this is just to hold all my liquor and drinks and everything. But I've also got stuff at the back there behind the bed. So what I've done is I've built this little hinge here. This comes out, and then the hinge drops down, and then that can hold in place while you go and get whatever you need to from back there. Over here I've built a clothing rack, and this works just like it would in any closet. You put your clothes there, except I've included this little latch here on this string so you can push the clothing further to the wall, giving you more space. Up here I've built some shelving for some items that I'm storing in here that I don't really use too much. I got my snowboard hanging from the ceiling there, and as you can see, all the stuff I've built in here is all built basically hanging from the ceiling. And the way I did that is I just got 2x4s, really long 2x4s, and put them all the way across the unit, and then I used L brackets to build shelving down from that.
Living in a storage unit isn't something people plan for. It isn't a phase they imagined when they worked hard, followed the rules, and tried to build a stable life. It's what happens when stability becomes unaffordable. What makes this reality so unsettling is how quietly it exists. There's no announcement, no official recognition, no clear moment where society says something has gone wrong. Instead, people adapt in silence. They learn how to survive in spaces never designed for humans. They measure their lives in square feet meant for boxes. They trade comfort for concealment. And they do it while still participating in the world. They work, they contribute, they pay taxes. Then they return to places that deny them privacy, dignity, and safety. This isn't resilience to celebrate. It's endurance forced by circumstance. Housing is supposed to be the baseline, the thing that makes everything else possible. Sleep, health, focus, recovery. When that foundation disappears, life becomes a constant balancing act. Every day is planned around not being noticed. Every night is shaped by uncertainty. People live with the awareness that one complaint, one inspection, one policy change could take away even this fragile arrangement. And living under that kind of pressure changes people. It creates constant stress, it fractures mental health, it erodes any sense of future. Because how do you plan long-term when your present is improvised? What's most disturbing is how close this reality is to so many others. This isn't an extreme edge case. It's the result of margins collapsing. When rent rises faster than wages, when housing becomes an investment instead of a necessity, people don't disappear. They squeeze into smaller and smaller spaces until there's nowhere left to go. Storage units are just one stop on that descent. And if this continues, they won't remain an exception. They'll become another quiet workaround in a society that refuses to confront what it's asking people to endure.